On the final day of 2019, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker pardoned more than 11,000 people convicted for possessing low levels of cannabis. He said hundreds of thousands of others could see their records expunged.
We are giving people a new lease on life. We will never be able to fully remedy the depth of the damage that's been done. But today, here in Illinois, we can govern with the courage to right the wrongs of the past.
The governor's announcement came as Illinois becomes today the 11th state to legalize marijuana. As Lisa Desjardins explains, that's just one example of scores of new laws going into effect across the country.
Congress and the president have been dominating, almost monopolizing the headlines lately, but the states are arguably doing more that changes the law, including a sweep of new state laws going into effect today, from criminal justice reforms and higher minimum wages to the costs of electric cars. Reed Wilson is a correspondent at the Hill newspaper and keeps track of what's happening in state politics. He joins me now from a familiar-looking set, our NewsHour West studio in Phoenix. Thank you, Reed.
Hey, Lisa.
Let's start right away with criminal justice reform. As Nick reported, Illinois has wiped out thousands of arrests and reversed convictions over marijuana, small amount of marijuana possession as part of legalization of the drug for recreational use. But this is also part of a broader criminal justice reform across the country. Take us through what's happening.
Yeah, we've seen Congress acting on criminal justice reform as one of their major initiatives this year, basically the only thing they could agree on a bipartisan basis. But it really started in the states, and we've seen this push towards expunging records for minor drug crimes, especially in states where marijuana is now legal. And we've seen this effort in places like California, New Jersey, and elsewhere, and now, of course, in Illinois as their recreational marijuana law takes effect. In some other states, New York has ended cash bail. It's another one of the another trend that we're starting to see in bluer states, a recognition that a lot of low-income residents who find themselves in jail can't afford to bail themselves out, and in some cases plead guilty to crimes they haven't committed just in order to get themselves out of jail quickly. And then in states like New Jersey and Kentucky, we've seen a push towards re-enfranchising felons who were once in jail and now, once they're out of jail, get the right to vote back. The theory behind it is basically the more you are reintegrated into your community, the less likely you are to offend again and head back to jail.
I also want to talk about something that will affect a lot of pocketbooks, minimum wages going up. Now, currently the federal minimum wage, as people know, $7.25 an hour. That's about $15,000 for someone working full time. But now we're seeing today, 21 states are seeing increases in their minimum wages. What's motivating these states to have a higher minimum wage going forward?
Well, so the federal minimum wage has not changed since 2009, and as you can imagine, inflation has not slowed down, and basically makes that purchasing power of that $15,000 far less than it was a decade ago. What we've seen in recent years is a push both through state legislatures and through ballot initiatives to raise the minimum wage to $12, $13, $14, even $15 an hour. And what a lot of these states are doing is they're taking an incremental process. So one state might pass a bill to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, but by, say, 2022. So today it will rise $1 an hour. Next January 1st, it'll rise another $1 an hour to sort of give businesses the opportunity to factor in those costs and to lessen the burden while also raising the minimum wage. Another thing that we've seen across the country this year is teacher salaries on the rise. You might remember about a year and a half ago, there were some significant teacher strikes in places like Kentucky and Oklahoma demanding higher wages. Governors all over the country, Republican and Democratic, didn't want to see those same teacher strikes in their own backyard. So in places like Arizona, where I am now, they proactively went out and raised teacher pays.
All right, let's talk about tech. Electric cars, some changes, and maybe texting and driving. I think Florida's making that a primary offense now.
Yeah, one of the things we're seeing is governments across the country are trying to figure out how to handle these big tech giants that are disrupting so many industries across the country. Whether that's a bill like California's AB5, which treats gig workers for Uber and Lyft and DoorDash as actual employees. That passed last year. It'll take effect in the new year, although it's going to be challenged by those those big companies that I just mentioned. In states that are raising costs of electric vehicles, that's a recognition that as more of us buy Priuses or Teslas or something like that, the revenue from gas taxes are going to go down. People putting less gas in their car means less money for roads and infrastructures in these states. So the states are trying to figure out how to regulate these new types of electric cars so that the drivers of those cars are still paying into the funds that pay for our national infrastructure.
Okay, so what's ahead? What are states likely to be talking about this year?
Well, I think we're going to see three broad trends that have some form of bipartisan cooperation. The first is about NCAA athletes and whether or not they can profit off of the use of their image and likeness. California passed a bill last year that would allow those athletes to get money from endorsement deals or, say, video game appearances. And we've already seen a number of bills introduced on a bipartisan basis in states like Minnesota and Florida and New York. I think that's going around the country in the next year. The second thing is sort of related. In sports betting. Sports betting is $1 billion industry, and a lot of states are saying that if they legalize sports betting, they'll be able to take some of the revenue in the form of taxes from what has otherwise been an underground economy. So we've seen legislation passed on a bipartisan basis in several states in 2019. That trend's going to continue in 2020. And then the last thing I'd point to is state budgets. You know, we've gone through a decade of economic expansion. States are taking in a lot more revenue than they budgeted for. That's the good news, but state legislators are worried about the next economic downturn. The recovery isn't going to last forever, so a lot of states are socking millions, if not billions of dollars away in their rainy day funds. Rainy day reserves are more than double what they were already before the last recession. So there's a bit of bipartisan agreement. It's time to save more money now in advance of what's going to be an economic downturn, whether it comes next year or a couple years down the road.
Reed, thank you for watching these important state governments. Reed Wilson of The Hill, Happy New Year.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. You too.